at you all the way from our dorm rooms to your conference rooms. Saba, Lee, and Dan Teeman here are two college students who are ready to talk to you guys about business and lifestyle from our personal experiences.
Each week we'll discuss about our lifestyle as college students as well as our tips and strategies starting in the business field. We'll bring on successful entrepreneurs in the millennial generation to share with us their journey and how they got started and where they're at now.
Our goal is to help you students, millennials, and entrepreneurs gain inspirational advice by our spontaneous conversations and meaningful guidance. Let's dive on in.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 62 of Dorm Rooms and Conference Rooms. And guys, as always, we have another amazing guest on here for our Friday special. And he could even hit on how I just persistently harassed him for the past 6 months of the year. But it's awesome to have him on. To get us going as always, though, Saba, how are you?
I am doing great. I'm really excited about this show because it also took us a while to actually get on here and start recording this. But I'm really excited.
Yeah, guys, we have Matt Gottesman on. Matt's an entrepreneur and co-founder of Trep Media Group, international brand strategist, social media influencer, and podcaster. I also know Matt as being the founder of hdnfmagazine.com and just a lot of great things doing with Pursuit.com. And he has just so much going on in his world. But Matt, how are you doing today? That was just a little tidbit about yourself.
I'm good. Thank you guys for having on. And I do appreciate your persistence, by the way, very much so. I think that was awesome of you.
Yeah, Matt. So kind of just get us going here. We'll talk about, I know you do have an MBA. Let's just kind of start your story from, the beginning. Where'd you go to college and how'd you get involved from college to entrepreneurship?
Yeah. I'll try to do this in the most high level overview way. But because it's definitely a journey with twists and turns. But I went to the University of Arizona. I'm originally from New York, New Jersey. And I love the U of A. It was an amazing school. Coming out of there, I went right into the music. I tried to go into the music industry a little bit. And when I say try, meaning I was interning and I was trying to do some stuff with it, but I was really getting into digital. And this was at a time where they were kind of yeah, sure, kid, whatever. And so I attempted to do a startup right at about 22, 23 years old, an internet music startup. And needless to say, the startup did not make it, but it was several years in the making, and it taught me a lot about back end infrastructure, technology, all this stuff I had no clue about at all. And then so I was around smart people that were teaching me things, and then front end marketers that were teaching me, design and verbiage and how do you actually get in front of people. So the startup didn't make it, but that gave me my real education in entrepreneurship and in technology and where things were heading. And then if you fast forward, I'm leaving out all the tough parts, I guess, which is kind of interesting because that's not necessarily my brand today, but it was a lot of twists and turns. And then my life started to change. My personal life was growing, and I ended up doing an MBA at Thunderbird, which was at the time was the #1 business school in the world for international business. And I've been asked before in another interview about is the MBA needed? It is not needed. I have no problem going on the record. I have no problem going on the record and saying it is not needed. Now, that I would never go back and change it because I had amazing classmates around me that some of them are my friends to today. And a couple of them recommended me to companies and brands that really got my start in terms of being taken serious in both digital and branding and digital marketing and actually helping to grow a company's bottom line using tech, right? So, and one of them was Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy out of New York and France, right? I mean, everybody seems to know and love Louis Vuitton, and it was on the Moet Hennessy side. And then also the World Trade Center out of New York, and there are over 300 of them around the world, their network of them. So I wouldn't change it, but the only real way that I learned a lot about entrepreneurship was coming from a very entrepreneurial family. My father's always been in his own businesses, and even as a lawyer, he had his own law firm, but he always had several things going on. And you know, by trial and error, basically failing several times along the way and figuring out what works and what doesn't work. And then also, I think that outside the MBA, that, if instead of the MBA, I think the best way you can really do some amazing things entrepreneurially is just go be around unbelievably smart people, and hopefully in cities and areas where there's a lot of really smart people creating together. That would be, if I could go back, I'd say that would be something I would change, is maybe different locations for sure.
So Matt, going back a little bit, so when you were in college, when you did do your first startup, were you just always interested in business, or did someone like spark your interest in doing that? And then also, how did you really get into the digital space with everything?
Yeah, I just like solving problems. So that's probably, and that's what really business is just solving problems. And you hope that there's enough people with those problems that you're solving them for, that you can then become profitable. But then of course you've got a whole bunch of other things like how do you create the foundation and the infrastructure and have a lot of people around you to help grow it. So I think that was my start, was that business was just something that I always saw the angle. I always saw, going back all the way to like when I was like 6, it sounds kind of funny, but like that was actually one of the first times I actually attempted a business, was at the age of 6. So, because I saw some things that at school people wanted, were like these bracelets that my sister made. And people liked them. So I said, oh, I can probably have them made for you too. And then I would go home to my mom, my sister, and I said, hey, there's an order placed. Here's what I'm charging. And I knew nothing. I was 6. So like, I knew nothing about operational costs. I knew nothing about material costs, paying the people who were making them. I was just, saying, hey, make them. And then I would sell them and make all the money. So clearly, and that didn't last too long. In business, or in college, transitioning to digital, for me, music was just a very big passion of mine. It still is. And I got really swept up during the wave of digital music, when that was first, the peer-to-peer network sharing, all of that stuff was coming out. And it fascinated me that you can connect with people around the world, talking about this music. You started chatting with them, and then you started like sending each other files and learning from each other. And so I was hooked at that point. I was really, really hooked. And because I liked music and international business, and the international part came because I recognized that, okay, you can connect with anybody anywhere in the world with technology. We're no longer, can you really call business national anymore? Maybe if it's like a very localized thing, but the internet has made everything international, because that's all we're doing is connecting with people. So I knew digital was the way to go. I just didn't know that because of the timing, I would be swimming uphill or upstream for a little while, right? So I was around digital music. I went to work in the music industry in LA a little bit. And as I was around executives and I was talking about digital to them, they just weren't really having it at that time. I think it was because it was very transitional, and, around that kind of, iTunes was newer. That's how far back we're going here. I was really young. iTunes was newer. They just weren't really sure what was going to happen. And I think there's a little bit of a fear mentality of, an industry, of holding on to what an industry used to be. And you still see this today with a lot of brands when it comes to tech and social media and internet marketing. They just still hold on to, former days of glory. And they weren't having it, and I was hooked on all things digital. I knew it was the wave of the future. And this is even as social media started to emerge. And how could it not be when you talk about business? Because you can get customers anywhere in the world now, and you can market to people. You can market to your exact niche in every country of the world, right? So you can connect in a matter of seconds across all platforms. How amazing is that for business? And, the ones that adapt that mindset, right? So hopefully that answers your question.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely answers your question on kind of how you transition there and how you view things. But kind of taking us more up that long swim you had into success now, after you got out of doing digital, music on the internet and all that, what was kind of the next step for you? What kind of did you do after that?
Okay, so here's the transition. I'll give you the journey right here. So music didn't work out. I tried to do the startup. I was 22, 23 years old. I had a business partner at the time. As we're trying to build this startup, we need money. He gives me this idea. Why don't we do real estate as well on top of that? I mean, I'm 23. I know nothing about real estate, but there was a boom happening, or it was about to happen, right? So timing. I start learning all these things from these programmers and marketers about digital. So I start making websites around real estate. I started targeting and giving away a lot of information. That's how I started getting leads. And so within real estate, I was able to garner leads, make sales. And then I also had basically I started having people in the financial services industry and the real estate industry ask me like how I was doing it. So on the side, I was actually also doing a little bit of consulting. So now I'm a digital strategy consultant. And it was just kind of, I was always being pulled right in the direction because people wanted to know like, who's this kid and how is he like doing real estate? Like, how is this happening? And so as that grew, the startup didn't make it. And I was left in this kind of quandary of, well, this isn't what I don't want to be a realtor. Like, and there's nothing wrong with real estate. I think it's great. I just didn't, that wasn't my passion. I was really more of a techie, of an internet like geek. So, at that point, and at that stage of my life, I chose to go back to get an MBA, which, by the way, previous to that, and during that real estate time, I actually met a friend who he was big in the loan world. He was big in the mortgages and finance. He was crushing it, and he got out on top. And he came to me and he said, "What do you know about digital marketing? Like, tell me everything. Just download me everything that you know." And I'm like, "All right." He disappears for 6 months and then like emerges and says, "Hey, I think you should come to my house." I go to his house and he's got like computers everywhere. He took what he learned in finance and started doing like driving major amounts of traffic using he was basically an affiliate marketer. And he was like, "I need help with this stuff. Do you want to help me?" So here I am again, in the face of digital and marketing. And it was great because he had really dove into the details. He would show me how he was, figuring out ad spend and budgeting and keyword analysis and like bidding against keywords to get a return. I mean, he's treating it like it was the stock market. It was which a finance person would. So I'm learning this stuff. I'm deciding, you know what, I want to handle big brands in the corporate world and help them really take what they're doing in the physical world and grow online in a way that they're really, they're like their websites, their mobile apps, how they're getting in front of their customers. I thought at that time that maybe that was a transition I wanted to do. I've been always entrepreneurial. Why don't I try the corporate route and let me get an MBA? And because that would be my doorway into that world. Plus I would learn some things I didn't really know from a corporate side of things. At least that was the assumption. So what had happened is I then ended up in, so I was in Thunderbird, and right away, a girl that became a great friend of mine, she said, "Hey, listen, I have somebody at Belvedere Vodka in New York who's a close friend of mine. They're trying to figure out digital. Can you go out there and meet with them?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I went out there and I met with the EVP of Belvedere. He was an awesome, amazing human being. He was like, "This stuff is sexy as hell that you're saying. I have no clue what you're talking about. So would you, maybe, we're at capacity in our budget. Maybe I can put you on some of the other brands and we can connect also on the side as well too and talk digital." I said, "That'd be great." So I was put in touch with Krug Champagne, which I had no idea at the time was one of the most prominent brands and premium brands in the world. It still is, very much so. In America, here we constantly talk about Cristal, and here's where all the sexy stuff starts coming in, right? So we start talking about like Cristal and Ace of Spade and Dom Perignon, which is also under Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy. But Krug champagne in the U.S. wasn't marketed the same way. But in France and in Asian countries and in Europe, it is known like it is one of the most premium brands in the world. And it is an amazing, amazing champagne. And I'm not a champagne drinker. So here I am. I'm now, I meet with them. They're like, this is great. You can help us. I met one of the gentlemen at that. He was from France and he was the director in the US. He brought me on and I said, I have a question for you. And he goes, why did I hire you? And I said, yes, I know nothing about champagne. He said, I know nothing about digital. So I guess we both have something to learn from each other. So it was cool. So I went in, I was basically trying to help them figure out their digital strategy. Like, how do you take what you're doing and really communicate and connect with your audience in a way that, drives brand reach and awareness and brand affinity, drives sales, drives, social engagement, everything. And it went well for a while for the life of my contract. And then when I was done, I finished my MBA and I got referred from another person from my school to the World Trade Center. And he just called me up and he said, hey, so this is the thing about entrepreneurship that I think people need to understand. Everything that ended up happening, I had no clue was going to happen whatsoever, ever. And so I get this random call and this guy says, hey, Matt, by the way, I just came out of a meeting from the World Trade Center. I was talking with the CEO. They need, like our agency can't do. They need a real hands-on guy. Would you maybe want to consult with them, talk with the CEO, call him in like a half hour? So I looked this guy up and he's a big shot. I mean, this guy used to be vice president of Norwegian Cruise Lines. He helped Bain Capital in Europe, which was like Mitt Romney's company. I mean, this dude did some things. And I called him up and I was just very honest with him. He said, what do you know about the World Trade Center? And I said, up until, 10 minutes ago, I had no idea there was over 300 of them worldwide. And he said, that's problem number one. Problem number two is I need a tech platform that can like bring them all together. And so I said, okay. I was like, and then we talked about budgets, which was not what I was hoping for. It would require a lot more money, but I made it work. And so it was a year-long project that I was able to do. And that's that. And so, go ahead.
So Matt, from everything from working with these clients, doing all of that, how did you get into HDF? Like, how did you found that? And then Tripe Media Group as well?
Perfect. Because that's exactly where I'm up to. So I did all this work for these different clients. There was a few others and I brought a lot of people together and I did I brought a lot of resources together. And around this time after that project was coming to a close, the kosher way of saying it basically is that I ended up having a bunch of contracts pulled away from me, even though I did really great work for them. And that made me feel very lonely. I can be very candid about it. I felt very lonely at the time. I felt very rejected. I felt very misunderstood because I did a good job. What do you mean? If you do a good job and you're rewarded for it and you help people make money and you complete your project, then you're safe, right? No, I guess you're not. And so that hit me. And then my personal life hit me all at once. And the turning point was I was coming home from Europe with my parents from a trip that was cut short. So we'll keep the personal side out of that. But we were coming home early and knowing that I was about to hit I had just hit a major wall. I lost pretty much everything that I had been working with or that was a part of my life at that time and for several years. And my parents looked at me and they just basically said, look, you're 35. We're an entrepreneurial family. We're independent. None of us ever tell each other what to do. If you were really ever going to run your race, now would be the time. If you were ever going to do something the way you want to do it, really run your race, now would be the time. And it hit me really, really hard. So I knew that I wanted to do a concept that was like a blog publication. I came home. That was almost 3 years ago. And I said, screw this, screw everything. I'm doing everything. I'm wiping the slate clean. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss, so I'm trying to keep that off the podcast. But I was just like, that's it. That's it. Kind of like middle finger in the air, like middle fingers in the air, just straight. I'm doing it all my way. Screw this. And enough of this glorification and glamorization of entrepreneurship, because it's just not that way. That's it. And I'd work with startups and I work with VCs, and everybody has this whole end goal mentality. And I was like, no, I'm not having it. I'm doing it my way. And I also knew that I wanted to build my own brand for a lot of reasons. As a consultant, you reach out to these brands and you tell them what you're capable of doing, and they go, well, how do you know it works? Like, well, it does. But if I can't tell you results from other companies because I'm under a contract or NDA, well, then I can't give you any results, right? And then on top of that, if they didn't take my advice, then I have no results. And I was like, screw this. I'm going to make my own results. I'm going to do it for myself. And then I'm going to show people how to brand and market. Like, this is how you do it. And so I knew I wanted a content platform and an influencer platform, because that's where we're heading. That's where we are. It's not going away, regardless of what companies think. It's only going to get more powerful. And I knew I wanted my own distribution. Why? Because now when I want to raise the profile of a company or make my own app or make any of my own endeavors I used to have before, now I have my own distribution, which brings me to the final point of it, which was I'd worked with companies that when they'd spend all the money on the pretty widget syndrome, they were like, just put it all in the development. Let's make a pretty site. And then when we would go to market, they would want all the results in 90 days. They never built an audience. They never did anything to curate the market. They didn't do anything to connect with their customer. They did nothing. And so I was like, this is not how it's done. You have to make the audience and then understand what they want and then give them a product or service around that if you already know the niche you're playing in. So I had a lot of reasons to create HDF, and I just also wanted to write. I was secretly a writer. Nobody knew except for maybe a couple of close friends and my parents. Nobody knew I was a writer. Like for 20 years, I held that in. So I wrote campaigns for people. I wrote privately just to write. I helped friends get into law school, med school, you pick it. Like I can get an email open like that. Like I love writing. I just devalued it for a very long time. And so HDF, it was a turning point for me, because I humbled myself and I said, let me stop chasing everything and let me just start serving people. Let me take my branding and marketing skills and help really awesome people who are on their way doing really cool things get noticed by other people that should already know about them, because they're next. They're going to hit it any minute now. And I also knew that if I market these people and then they market to their circles, which they had good social media following, they would drive traffic to my site and my list would go up and my traffic would go up. So I was also very strategic about it. And when I picked people I wanted to interview, I wanted them to be very, it's about their character. So I can go across any industry I wanted. Most people say, no, I'm only going to feature health and wellness, or I'm only going to feature athletes. I'm only going to feature, product developers or whatever. I was like, no, I'm going after their character. I'm going to niche on someone's character, their hustle. And so, the irony about hustle and deal flow, by the way, there's two components about that. The idea came from, I was sitting in my car thinking, well, I like this idea of hustle before hustle got saturated. I like this idea of hustle. And I've been around the venture capital world. Deal flow is a term that's used for companies, the amount of companies, the concepts that are coming through a venture capital's office, like how many deals they're working on. So I loved hustle and flow like that. It was a movie, but I love that way that the words were. And then I was like, what about hustle and deal flow? Creators and their companies, their ideas. And then the market took it different. Some people in the market who are very entrepreneurial and venture capital driven knew exactly what I was calling it. But then the rest of the world thought of it as hustle, deal with it, and flow. And I got to tell you, not once have I ever corrected anybody, because I thought that was awesome that people, took it, the brand name, and made it something completely different, but still on mission, which was another lesson I learned, which is if your audience receives your brand in a way that's different than you intended, but it's still on mission, it's still on your vision, don't correct them. Embrace it. I loved it. I loved how they thought of it. And a few months later, I was on Instagram. I was growing. Case Kenny of Pursuit.com direct messages me. It's true. You really do meet people in the DM. Sometimes they become your business partner. He said, I love what you're doing. You feature creators from around the world, and you tell their stories about their journey. I have over 400 contributors from around the world writing about their journey. Would you give me a call? I said, yeah, sure. Again, I'm just humbly creating, not knowing what's going to happen. And I called him up. He said, I'm in Chicago. Here's what I'm doing. I have no idea how to work with you, but maybe we can figure something out. And I said, you know what? I've had business partners. I've done all kinds of stuff. Why don't we just help each other grow, man? I love what you're doing. Let's just help each other. 2 weeks later, after that, I'm at Phoenix Startup Week. And this is, the first 7-8 months of HDF. And the reason why I love telling this part of the story, all of this stuff right here, is because when you start, you don't have to know where it's going to go at all. You just and it's ludicrous to a lot of people. I mean, people were like, oh, wait, this is a complete departure from where you were. This is you were the startup guy, you were working with businesses, you were doing this, you even tried a music startup. That made more sense than this crazy thing, an online publication. Really? I don't get it. I don't get it. The market, the critics can be unkind sometimes. If people don't see the vision, that's okay. You just have to create from a really core place that just for some weird reason resonates with you and run with it. And so 2 weeks after I met Case, I'm at Phoenix Startup Week, and this guy comes up to me and he says, HDF, you're HDF. And I said, yeah. And he goes, I was just over listening to some things. Tell me why you're doing what you're doing. And I said, okay. And I was much quicker than on this podcast. And he said, do you want help? So there's another lesson. There were constant lessons. I was like, yes, sir, I do. I don't know what I'm doing. I never thought I was a media company. I always knew I was, a businessman, and I tried, I've been a part of startups. I created a startup. I've helped companies grow. I never really thought of myself as a media entrepreneur, like a media owner. But here's this account that's growing. Now I have this email list that's growing. I have a website that's growing. I met this other guy a couple of weeks ago. He's got a publication. He's crushing it online, hundreds of thousands of views. We're both growing, and we want to change the way content is out in the masses. We want to do purpose-driven content for the masses. And we're talking. He says, "Have you ever heard of youngentrepreneur.com?" And I said, "Are you kidding me?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, that was one of that was the biggest forum for entrepreneurs at one point. It was they were massive. I was like, they're huge. But they sold to, entrepreneur.com. And man, they made a killing. They were, oh, are you kidding me? I was going on and on and on. And I was like, but yeah, I was like, they made millions and millions of dollars or something like that. And he goes, something like that. And I was like, was that you? He was so humble. I had no idea. I was like, wait, hold up. I was like, oh shit. I'm like, was that you? And he goes, well, and my brother and I. Do you still want help? And I said, yes, sir, I do. I do. I'm like, I'd be crazy not to. And he said, I like why you're doing what you're doing. I like your character. I'll take a look at Case as well. Let's meet for lunch next week. And they've been our advisors ever since. And they've been some of my biggest teachers. And whether it's good love or tough love or just family and friends, they've given a lot of really profound advice over the last couple of years. And they also watched me come back from a very tough place in my life because I had lost everything that was really had what I thought at the time meaning, and it was taken away from me. So they had to watch me kind of rise through the process and still learn a lot about myself. And everything I did on this run was also about humbling myself and not being so fast. And as you guys know, especially I give you guys a lot of credit, I'm around, so I help mentor some young entrepreneurs, and I see and some of them started at 14, 15. I wish we had some of those things at 14, 15. You hear people like Gary Vaynerchuk talk about that all the time. What we're dealing with now, we did not have at 14 or 15 years old. I'm not Gary's age. I'm younger than Gary, but I'm still in my 30s, but still it's It's just that like we didn't. I see people starting at 14, 15, 18, 19. And I'm just like, wow, go, run. And if you guys need help, cool. But I also see the flip side of it is that sometimes they're caught up also in the numbers and the growing. And they're just like, they want to just be out there and, you know, and I pace myself a little bit differently. I still move very swiftly, but I don't move like quickly. And the difference is like swiftly is like, I'm moving like, at the speed of my mission, at my purpose, but I'm not gonna sacrifice, you know, doing things the wrong way because I've done them the wrong way before, and so I want to be disciplined enough to build the foundation the right way, and still, you know, keep learning. And so, yeah, we've been growing ever since. And then what transpired was, our audience, we reached about 30, 40,000 on Instagram, and our audience started asking Case and I, hey, you guys should do a podcast. And we kept kind of ignoring it. Due to a series of weird, unfortunate, non-coincidental events, I had a relationship with a studio here in town that came in out of nowhere, and they were hoping that one day I would start a podcast. And I walked in one day and I said, I think we're ready to do a podcast. And they said, finally. And I went home to Case and I said, like, and I called him up and I said, hey, I think we should do a podcast. And he said, awesome, man. You know, that's how Case is too. Like, if the idea is warranted, he's all in. And he said, what do you want to call it? And I said, how about The Hustle is Sold Separately? And he said, how about we shorten it to Hustle Sold Separately? And I said, boom, I love it. Let's do it. And we used all of our distribution to grow that podcast. And the concept was very, very simple. We wanted to feature people, regardless of how successful they had already been or are, talking about their journey. Because when you can relate on a human level, we wanted to humanize the CEO, humanize the celebrity, humanize the entrepreneur, whether they're in their first year or their, you know, their fifth venture. We wanted to bring a human experience to the journey, to the entrepreneurship. So you can see that you're no different than anybody else. We've had some massively successful people on. Everybody has been, but we've had some massively successful people, and they're still like creating something new and trying to figure out how to grow this new brand or get their app. You know, it could be an athlete who's now like trying to get a mobile app to work. Well, they're not a techie. They have no idea like what that world is like. So we really wanted to make sure to humanize that experience, and we were able to grow that, I think, to roughly about 1 million downloads in about a year and a half. We got featured in Forbes, and it just had a mind of its own, and we still to this day like get a lot of really great guests. And as you guys know, in media, you start establishing a lot of really great relationships. So it's like, you know, my Rolodex has become something very different than what it used to be. But at least we own that media. And that's the difference from like 5 years ago when I was helping all these other companies grow. I didn't own shit. So like, if they let me go or the contract's over or whatever, I'm left with nothing. This time around, I'm like, no, I got this thing right here, this living, breathing thing that has different audiences and has has a main purpose and has distribution. So that's that stuff right there.
Yeah.
Hopefully that also answers the question.
So Matt, we're going to go back a little bit here, away from the podcast and all that good stuff and kind of away from the meeting, but going back to HDNF, what are some great tips for people that want to learn how to write better, that want to learn how to write articles for a magazine like yours or for Forbes or Entrepreneur, or any of those major, publications? What are some good writing tips you could give to them?
Number one, write every single day. It doesn't matter how crappy you think it is, just write every single day. Write it, type it, write it, whatever is your tool of choice, your weapon of choice, but write every single day. One of the first things I read years ago was James Altucher's Choose Yourself. And he was talking about your brain is a muscle, and it's just like everything else. What happens when you train it? So the whole idea is that if you write every single day, you're just training your mind to execute more ideas, more thoughts out there. The other thing is, it's not write in your voice. Don't write the way you were taught in school, right? Write in your voice. Now, you can use elements of what you were taught in school, for the way it's structured, but just write with your voice. If you're writing for the web or really for anything, people want to hear you. And that's where I've been able to do that with HDF, is that when I write there, I write from a core, like my core. It's my tone. It belongs to me. And I'm sharing my thoughts and my feelings with the world. So that's why it's so sticky. And because I'm not just putting something up and then I put a quick, I repeat the quote or repeat I'm actually giving my thoughts on that I've learned or am learning. So when you write, just write with your tone in mind, like the way you think and feel, and then just put it out on the, onto some form, whether it's on web or, documents or whatever, right? And then another, go ahead.
So really quick, I didn't want to cut you off there. You're doing, talking really well there. But I was just wondering, is there any type of format too? Kind of, if you want to hit on that while inside the question, I just kind of thought about it. Is there any formatting tips that they might want for these publications, or are they all different?
Yeah, so they're all different for publications, but for if somebody, I actually am looking for people to come on board with HDF and help maybe either write their own journeys or do and document it. And I know Case with Pursuit is definitely always looking for more writers, like at pursuit.com/contribute. And so the format is usually, at least for us, and then I can give you kind of an overall format. For us, it's, or at least, let's see, for HDF, it's what did the person go through? How are they, what's going on right now? How does that relate to the reader who might be, experiencing something similar? And where do they see it going, right? And then what are the takeaways? And it's very similar for Pursuit as well. When a person writes, so Pursuit is very much like an elite daily or a Huffington Post for this millennial generation. Only it's very much around the individual's journey. So you could be like, I quit my job and traveled the world for 6 months. Here's what happened. Or, it could be anything around your specific experiences, because it has to be experiential content. So it's, here's what I did. Here's what I learned or I am learning. Here's what can help you, since you might be, if you're thinking about doing something similar, and here's what you can take away from it. And I think that's a really great, I think overall, that's a really great way to do your writing is, you have to give value. You have to give value in your writing. So when I've written for other publications as a guest or been featured in major publications, it was very much like that. Here's what, someone is trying to figure out, and I have the knowledge around it, the experience around it. And here are 5 things that you need to take away. What kind of takeaways can you give them that they can implement immediately? So, again, if you were to write for an Entrepreneur magazine or Inc. or Forbes, something like that, if that should come about, that opportunity, depending on what you're focusing on, it's kind of an intro. You got to bring the person into the actual story. What's going to hit them right at the very hard at the very beginning that loops them in. And then you say, because I learned this, and here's what happens, and here's what I know, and here's what's efficient, and or works, and here's what you should take away, and you can try to implement immediately. So you always want to be thinking of the reader, getting them into the journey and the mindset, and then giving away the value so they can take it with them and apply it themselves.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know I started blogging actually about a year ago now, and starting off, it was actually kind of hard, but once you actually do it on a daily basis, it gets so much easier.
Right.
But Matt, kind of closing things down here, you're in the digital space, you know the ins and outs of it. Where do you really see it going in the next 5 to 10 years from now?
Ooh. 5 years and 10 years look two totally different. I think, and not I think, I mean, my guesstimate is that you're going to see a lot more artificial intelligence. You're going to see a lot more customer data. you're going to see a lot more virtual reality. You're going to see a lot more connectivity. I think it's going to be unbelievable. I think influencer marketing is only at the very, very beginning. And even though it's been, blowing up the last couple of years, the winners hold the distribution and you're already seeing that right now. It's such a high level, question because like 5 years from now, I think that I know that if you don't, we're going to see a lot more automation. So automation and customer analytics and artificial intelligence. If you are a company and you are not embracing digital now, I don't want to say it because I want everybody to succeed. But if you don't embrace digital, you could be obliterated from the market, period, end of story. I really do believe that because there's going to be a small business that's going to come in, use all the technology that it has, blow up and just dust you in the process. So I do think that if companies don't embrace automation and artificial intelligence and the means to use social media and the kind of marketing that we have with the data, now they might be left completely, not just behind, but like obliterated. And that's a bold statement, but I firmly believe that. And then you're going to see massive disruption from both companies you've never heard of before that come up, in a matter of 6 months. And I believe you're going to, in industries that never even existed before. And then you're going to see a bunch of new products and services for those industries, right? Because there's so many new emerging industries because of technology and everything's becoming complementary. So we come up with, I'm trying to do this off the fly, but all of a sudden you have, product X in the market. Like every time Apple does something, you get people who make products for Apple products, right?
True.
So think about it like that. And then not only that, how fast are they doing it? So they make them in China, or they can make them, even in the States or wherever, South America. They can import them, they can drop ship, they can make anything happen almost instantaneously. They can get a 3D sculpture of something. I think 3D is going to be even bigger. And 3D technology for creating products and going from product concept and ideation to market will be a matter of like days, is my opinion, about 5 years from now, maybe even, yeah. So hopefully that answers your question as well.
Yeah, it's crazy what you think's about to happen or what is about to happen. I mean, I could definitely see it going that way myself. And especially too, I do some Facebook marketing. Really, I hopped on that train just because that's where it's all going. It's all going on Facebook. Mm-hmm. It's all going on Instagram, whatever it might be. So I figured if I could learn that now, I could definitely help some businesses out, help myself out, whatever it might be. So I've definitely been running a lot of ads for real estate agents specifically is what I've been focusing in. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of them that don't believe in digital and all that for whatever reason. I can't even wrap my head around it being, the 22-year-old. So I'm thinking to myself, everyone must be on Facebook. Everyone must be on Instagram. And it's like, why aren't you then? Why your customers are there? Why aren't you there? But Matt, kind of just ending things here. Oh, go on.
No, I was just gonna say, I think that's so unbelievably smart of you right now, investing your time in Facebook. I'm a big Instagrammer. I like Facebook. Now I'm starting to love Facebook. And just like you, I even did it because I wanted to be a better marketer. And I learned from some other amazing marketers, way smarter than me, about Facebook. And I was like, you know what? I want to learn this. And it made me a better marketer. Facebook advertising and their platform and understanding customer segmentation and and their data. Oh my God, are you kidding me? The stuff that you can do now, like how micro niche.
It's scary. It's scary.
It's awesome. I mean, I was working with a client this morning, so I do consulting with individuals and startups and brands and stuff as well. I was working with a client this morning, and her and I were diving into some things on the platform, and she's like, "You've got to be kidding me right now." And I'm like, "I know, right? Like you can even here's a small like takeaway for anybody. Like you can even target, and this employer, like people who put not their interests, but like who they are employed by. Mm-hmm. And if you think about how powerful that is, especially if you want media exposure, here's a small thing that like is a major result that I've gotten from people that I learned was if you want to be in front of like a certain type of media outlet, go put yourself when you boost a post of your content around the people who work for the media outlets, they're employed by them.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they see your content, their goal is to come up with new content to repost to their millions and millions of viewers, right? So think about that. You can actually put yourself in front of the exact media that you want to have exposure for your brand, your product, you as a personal brand, everything. I mean, it's insane how micro-targeted and niche you can get. It's amazing.
I mean, we've been reaping the benefits ourselves. Another thing, like saying the employer side, like we run an ad towards real estate agents. So we do it running if you're employed by like Remax, Century 21, whatever it might be. And we just run it towards all those people. And, it's just nuts. We reap the benefits that way. It's just certain things like that are even crazy. It's just from a certain perspective, it's scary what Facebook can do. From our perspective, it's amazing.
Right. There you go. Well put. Very well put.
Matt, anyway, just shutting things down here. Where can people find you at?
Yeah, they can. There's several places they can reach me at. They can reach me at matt@gottesman.com. They can reach me at info@hdfmagazine.com. On Instagram, HDF Magazine. I would love to have, people there interacting with me. And they can find us on our podcast, The Hustle Separately, and pursuit.com, where they can find Case. And but if they ever want to reach out to me, matt@gottesman.com.
Guys, definitely, if I suggest one of those platforms, go to HDNF Magazine on Instagram. That's what I've seen him do lives. I've liked his stuff. I've commented. I've done, like I said, I've been reaching out to Matt for a while. So any way to keep on his radar, basically, I was doing. But guys, you can find Matt at HDF Magazine on Instagram, and you can find us at dr2cr.com. Sabo, what are some final words?
Matt, thank you so much for coming on. You literally just blew my mind away with everything that you know with digital marketing and your amazing journey. So definitely reach out to him, guys. But that's all we have today on Dorm Rooms to Conference Rooms.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, guys. You guys are awesome.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Dorm Rooms and Conference Rooms. Don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you haven't joined our accelerator program yet, you can find that at livetogrind.com/college, where we connect you with today's latest influencers and experts in their fields.